Imagine this. You're chilling in your village, tending to your cattle, sipping on some freshly brewed sorghum beer, when suddenly, boom, here comes a rival clan, throwing spears, stealing your cows, and making it very clear that you are no longer welcome. You grab whatever you can, yell at your younger brother to stop crying, and start walking. Destination? No idea. All you know is that wherever you settle next, better have water, grass for your cows, and hopefully fewer enemies. This wasn't just a one-time event. For centuries, this was life for the Nilotic-speaking tribes of East Africa. And today, we're diving deep into their grand migration, why they moved, how they shaped East Africa, and how their love for cows changed everything. Get ready for epic journeys, deadly battles, betrayals, and, well, a whole lot of cow talk. Because trust me, cows were the VIPs of this story. So first things first, who are the Nilotes? If you're thinking, people who lived along the Nile, you're not far off. They originally lived in what is now South Sudan, way before Instagram, colonial maps, or the idea of borders even existed. These guys were cattle herders, warriors, and proud nomads who took their cows very seriously. If you stole someone's cow, congratulations, you just declared war. Now, you'd think life was pretty good along the Nile, right? Plenty of water, green pastures, decent weather. But nope, something had to ruin it. And that something came. In multiple forms. Climate changes, drying up grazing lands, rival groups competing for resources, expansion of powerful empires that didn't take kindly to uninvited guests and their cattle. So, what do you do when life gets tough? You pack up, take your cows, and find a better place. Thus began one of the greatest migrations in African history. Now, if you think modern road trips are stressful, imagine migrating on foot across East Africa, dodging hostile neighbors, wild animals, and the occasional unpredictable flood. As the Nilotes spread southward, they didn't just pass through lands, they left their mark. The Luo people, for example, marched towards Lake Victoria and settled there, influencing communities all the way into Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. Meanwhile, the Maasai, arguably the most famous Nilotic group, took a different approach. Instead of settling, they doubled down on their warrior culture and took over vast territories, dominating the Rift Valley and striking fear into their enemies. How did they manage to do this? 3 words: cows and combat. Nilotic warriors were tall, strong, and trained in battle from a young age. If a young man wanted to prove himself, he had to raid another village, steal cattle, and return victorious. It was like an extreme sport, dangerous, adrenaline-pumping, and with a very high chance of failure, or getting speared. And let's talk about their diet. These guys were built differently. Their staple meal? Milk mixed with blood. Yep, fresh cow blood, drained from the animal without killing it, mixed with milk for extra protein. It sounds hardcore, and that's because it was. Now, let's be real. Moving into new lands wasn't a walk in the park. Other groups were already living there, and they weren't exactly handing out welcome baskets. Picture this. You're a settled farmer, minding your own business, growing sorghum, when suddenly a group of tall, spear-wielding Nilotes shows up, looks at your land and says, "Nice place. We'll take it." You protest, of course, but they just point at their massive herd of cows and their even bigger spears. But it wasn't always war. The Nilotic groups didn't just fight their way across East Africa. They also formed alliances, learned new agricultural techniques, and adapted. Some groups, like the Kalenjin, took up farming and mixed with other Bantu-speaking communities. Others, like the Dinka and Nuer, stuck to their traditional herding ways but developed sophisticated political structures that allowed them to manage resources effectively. The real genius of the Nilotic migration wasn't just about survival, it was about adaptation. Every group they encountered, whether friend or foe, left a cultural imprint. The Maasai became master traders, exchanging cattle for grains and weapons. The Luo adopted fishing from Bantu-speaking communities near Lake Victoria. The Karamojong developed advanced herding strategies that helped them thrive in dry climates. Basically, they weren't just warriors, they were innovators. Now let's pause for a second. You might be thinking, cool story, but why does this matter today? Well, the Nilotic migration isn't just ancient history, it's a masterclass in adaptability, resilience, and the power of culture. Think about it. In a world where everything is constantly changing, climate, politics, economies, the ability to adapt is what separates those who thrive from those who struggle. The Nilotes didn't sit around complaining about losing their land. They moved, fought, negotiated, and rebuilt their communities wherever they went. And let's not forget their sense of identity. Even after centuries of migration and cultural blending, Nilotic groups still proudly maintain their traditions, whether it's the Maasai's iconic red shukas or the Luo's deep-rooted fishing heritage. So, what's the lesson here? No matter where life takes you, own your story, adapt, and keep moving forward. And now, for the big reveal, what happened to the Nilotes after all that movement? Well, they didn't just survive, they shaped East Africa's history and identity. Today, some of the most well-known ethnic groups in Kenya, Uganda, South Sudan, and Tanzania trace their roots back to this great migration. Their languages, traditions, and warrior spirit continue to influence the region. And remember that whole cow obsession? Turns out, it wasn't just about food. Cows became currency, status symbols, and even part of religious rituals. Even today, in many Nilotic communities, wealth is measured not by bank accounts, but by the number of cattle you own. So, the next time you see a Maasai warrior standing tall with his spear, or a Luo fisherman expertly casting his net, just remember you're looking at the descendants of some of the most resilient, adventurous, and fearless people in African history. And that, my friends, is how a migration driven by war, climate, and cows created a legacy that still stands strong today. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to go find some milk and maybe not the blood part. Like this story? Want more epic historical deep dives? Smash that like button, subscribe, and let us know if you had to migrate across East Africa with only one item. What would it be? A spear? A cow? A Wi-Fi router? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, keep moving, keep adapting, and never ever underestimate the power of a good cow.